I don't. I just would like to clarify one thing. The two Quoque fallacy gets misquoted a lot. I mean, it gets misused a lot, and I just want to clarify. It's really only a fallacy if you're trying to justify your position by pointing out the other person's hypocrisy. Merely pointing out that someone else is being hypocritical is not a fallacy.
Not everybody knows Latin. What is tu quoque?
It just means you too. And so all it is, I mean, but the point is, if I'm doing something that is being criticized, and someone comes up and criticizes it, it says that there's a problem with that it's causing issues, whatever, and then I turn and say, well, you're doing it too. The fallacy would only happen if I then said, so that makes it okay for me to do it. So it's fine to point out, like, well, you're a heck of a hypocrite coming up and criticizing people for something that you're doing as well. That's not a fallacy. That's just a fact, right?
Senator, don't you also have sexual relations with badgers?
You're hardly the one to be criticizing. But the criticism may still be valid, and that's the point. If you try to use the fallacy in order to say that the criticism is invalid, then you've got a problem. That's fallacious. The criticism is still valid. It's just that you're both doing it. But I've heard it used in situations like recently. I heard it used in the Cy and Matt debate where it was misused. And basically, Cy's position was that his worldview is superior because it accounts for things that he believes other worldviews do not. And so he called out Matt on a particular point that he said, your worldview does not address this. And Matt said, well, neither does yours. And he said, well, that's tu quoque. And it's like, no, it's not. You're the one making the claim that your worldview is superior because his doesn't account for this. It's perfectly reasonable to point out, but yours doesn't account for this. So how does yours become superior based on this?
Right, because Cy's whole argument is based on, like, you know, you should pick my belief by default because his doesn't explain stuff.
Right, and so if somebody's telling you that what they've got is better because yours does not do X, Y, Z, and theirs does not do X, Y, Z, then it's fair to ask them, how is yours better if the reason you're thinking it's better is that it's lacking X, Y, Z. Yours also lacks X, Y, Z. And just to be clear, I didn't think that it was actually something that needed to be accounted for in a worldview. I think that it might have been a bit of a, almost like one of those questions where they say, well, who created it if it's a creation? It's like, well, you're making some assumptions there, and I don't think that the question itself is even demonstrated to be a valid question at that point. And so, that was just one example. But, when you start throwing it down just because someone points out hypocrisy, anyone can point out hypocrisy. That's just simply factual if it's actually happening. And it reminds me a little bit of when people use ad hominem, and they'll throw that down whenever there's anything that's negative or insulting, right? An ad hominem could actually be a factual statement. It doesn't even have to be an insult. It could be, for example, if you had done something that was really bad or illegal, and I said, oh, we don't have to listen to what Russell's saying about this topic over here because, well, he broke the law and he's like not even an honest person because of that. Well, it might even be true that he did that. Maybe he got arrested and put away, and so we all know that it was a fact that it happened. But it's still only an ad hominem if I try to invalidate what he's actually arguing as a result of that piece of information that I'm trying to use as negative.
Saying your argument is invalid and you're a butthead is
not
an ad hominem.
Yeah, and telling somebody that they're a hypocrite is not tu quoque. And it's only when you're trying to say that my position is not invalidated by that. But if you give your argument and say, I believe my position is valid on this, and you're being a hypocrite, I think that's totally fair. I don't think that there's anything fallacious about that. So just to kind of clarify it, please don't toss out fallacy labels if you're not sure what they mean. And if somebody calls you out and says that's not what it means, please do go and look it up because you could be wrong.
Right.